I learned two things the night the hunger found us. First, snow can swallow sound. And second, some footsteps don't belong to anything that's alive. Before that night, I believed fear was loud. I believed it came with screaming, with running, with panic burning through you fast and leaving you shaking afterward. I didn't understand that real fear is quiet. Real fear waits. The call came just before 11, a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring longer than I should have. Outside my window, snow tapped softly against the glass, slow and steady, like it was asking to be let in. When I answered, the voice on the other end was calm, not friendly, not rushed, prepared. A search and rescue volunteer named Marrow. That was his real name. I remember thinking it sounded earned, like something you don't start life with, but end up wearing after enough bad nights. He told me a camper named Rowan had gone missing near Blackwater Ridge. 2 days without contact. A storm moving in. Visibility getting worse by the hour. They needed one more person. Someone who knew the trails. Someone who wouldn't panic. I told myself I was that person. 30 minutes later, I was standing where the road ended and the forest began. The trucks idled behind us, engines rumbling like they didn't want to shut off. Like they knew that once they did, we were on our own. The trees stood close together, tall and dark, branches sagging under fresh snow. They didn't sway, they didn't creak. They waited. There were 4 of us. Marrow stood a little apart, scanning the tree line like he expected it to move. Jessa adjusted her pack with practiced calm. She was the kind of person who stayed steady because other people needed her to. Nolan kept pulling his gloves off and putting them back on, like he didn't trust his hands to stay attached. And me. Before we stepped onto the trail, Marrow said something that didn't belong in a normal conversation. "Whatever you hear," he said, "don't answer it." No explanation, no follow-up, just a rule. The forest swallowed our voices when we started calling Rowan's name. The sound didn't echo. It didn't bounce back. It disappeared. Snow muted our footsteps until it felt like we were floating. Even our breathing sounded too loud, each exhale sharp in the cold air. After a while, I realized something else. The woods weren't responding. No animals, no wind, no distant movement. It felt like everything else had gone still to listen. The trail split about 20 minutes in. One path climbed toward the ridge. The other dropped into a narrow gully where the pines grew so close together their branches tangled overhead, turning the space below into a tunnel of shadow. That's where we saw the footprints. They were fresher than ours. Too long to be human. Too narrow. The spacing between them was wrong. Too even. Too deliberate. Nolan said maybe it was a moose. No one agreed with him. Then the tapping started. Slow. Hollow. Patient. Like 2 pieces of wood being knocked together far below us. Not a warning. Not a signal. A rhythm. Jessa called Rowan's name before anyone could stop her. Marrow grabbed her arm hard enough to hurt. "That isn't him," he said. We went uphill. As we climbed, a smell drifted toward us. Not rot, not blood. Something older. Something that made my stomach tighten before my mind caught up. Like wet fur left somewhere it didn't belong. At the ridge, we found Rowan's shelter. A tarp sagging under snow. A fire pit filled with ice, his backpack sitting where he'd left it. Inside was his phone. 1% battery, 1 unsent message. Something is copying my voice. That was when the forest felt closer. I didn't see it at first. I felt it. That pressure at the base of your skull when someone stands just behind you. I turned too fast and caught a glimpse of something between the trees. Too tall, too thin, not standing like a man, more like it was hanging there, suspended. Then my voice came from the woods, calling for help. Perfectly. Nolan froze. Jessa stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Marrow told us not to answer. The voice changed. It became Rowan's. Then, Nolan's. It wasn't chasing us. It was learning us. When Marrow fired the flare, the forest bloomed red, and for one terrible second we saw it. A body made of angles and shadow, horns grown, not worn. No eyes, no mouth. And yet it knew exactly where we were. We ran, not because it charged, but because it didn't need to. Winter was on its side. The cabin appeared out of the snow like a memory remembered wrong. Old, warped, waiting. We barricaded the door. The forest went quiet in a way that felt deliberate. Then Nolan's voice cried outside, begging to be let in. Then mine asked calmly for the door. Something scratched the wood, slowly, testing. The cabin grew colder, not from weather, from attention. Marrow found the trap door in the floor and finally told us the truth. The cabin wasn't built to keep things out. It was built to hide. Hours passed like that, standing, shivering, listening to the cold press inward. Time stopped behaving normally in the cabin. Minutes stretched until they felt like memories. Every sound took on meaning. The slow creak of the wood as it contracted in the cold. The soft hiss of our breath. The faint ticking sound in my ears that I couldn't tell was blood or fear. At one point, I was sure I heard footsteps outside again. Not close, not far. Just enough to remind us that distance meant nothing out there. Jessa sat with her back against the wall, knees pulled tight to her chest. Her eyes were open, but unfocused, like she was listening to something the rest of us couldn't hear. Nolan whispered that he was sorry. No one asked him for what. The cold kept building, not fast, not dramatic, just steady, like the cabin itself was forgetting how to hold warmth. My fingers went numb, then painful, then numb again. I wondered if that was how it wanted us. Quiet, slow, easy. That's when the voice came back, not loud, not begging, just close. So close it sounded like it was standing right on the other side of the wall, leaning in. It used Marrow's voice this time. Calm, certain. "It's gone," it said softly. "You can come out now." Marrow didn't move. None of us did. The voice tried again, adjusting, refining the sound like someone tuning an instrument. "I waited," it said. "Just like you told me." The trap door beneath us gave a soft creak, like weight shifting below. I realized then that it wasn't impatient. It didn't feel hunger the way we did. It felt hunger the way winter does, endlessly. Just before dawn, everything stopped. Outside, there were no tracks, only deep grooves on the door frame, too high for hands, like horns had rested there, just long enough to remind us. Snow can swallow sound, and some footsteps don't belong to anything alive. Sometimes they belong to hunger. And if you ever hear your own voice calling from the woods, don't answer.